Hey there, Internet. Welcome to Movieverse Podcast number 2. This is Greg. Brian is not available to join me on this podcast, so just going to be myself talking about the recent happenings in the major movie world. So you could say this would be somewhat of a solo cast, which would lead us right into the very first news topic, which is that Star Wars Episode 7 recently completed principal photography. While that in itself is not that big news, it's kind of knowing that this movie is done now and it's getting edited and special effects being done. ADR is going to be completed thereafter. Just kind of reassures us that it's right on track for its December release next year. They also, along with that, release the official title, which is Star Wars The Force Awakens, which kind of, to me, kind of seems like, I don't know necessarily some of the other rumors that have been swirling are true or not. To me, the title invokes a kind of Luke has been searching for something, or something is drawing Luke out. Whether that's the dark side of the Force or it's another, Dark Jedi or Sith, Sith character, something that I'm not really too sure about one way or the other, but it kind of seems like the whole events of the movie are the result of kind of what Luke has been doing in these years since Episode 6 finished, and now when this is coming out. Now, J.J. Abrams did also say that we'll be getting our first teaser trailer soon. However, I'm not sure what movie that would go in front of. I mean, Disney has Big Hero 6, which comes out this coming weekend, but that's definitely not enough time to get together any kind of trailer, unless you'd already planned one in the first place. But after that, I know Disney does not really have any other movies that are hitting theaters that would kind of fall into that same kind of kids, young adult, action adventure type movie until you start getting back into the spring, and that doesn't really seem like soon to me. But that would be very interesting to see what that first trailer shows. Because, well, yes, there have been set photos leaked and concept art leaked and stuff like that. It has been a relatively quiet set for Star Wars, unlike some of the other big name movies that have come out recently. But I have a feeling that probably tends to do with the locations they're shooting from. Sound like they are more remote areas. It's not like Batman shooting in the middle of Pittsburgh or Avengers shooting in the middle of Cleveland. So you don't get that kind of civilian production diary like those movies had. So it will be really interesting what comes of that. Now moving to the other side of Disney, which owns Marvel, it has been a little bit old news now of the Age of Ultron trailer being leaked online. Marvel's great PR spin taking control of it and putting out cease and desist notices for that original leaked video, then releasing the video themselves, kind of poking fun of themselves with the reference to Hydra and that. But recent events found out on November 6th, Marvel made a request for a subpoena in the local district court to subpoena Google for the records of a user that Marvel believes is the one who leaked the trailer. Now, because of nature, I'm not going to say the username that they suspect, but that name is out there. It was just filed, so they have a couple weeks Google has a couple weeks to respond before they actually before actually anything really would be done or any charges being brought up. So it will be kind of interesting to see how they handle that, because they did take such kind of a lighthearted approach publicly initially when the video was released. So it'll be interesting to see to what extent they'll litigate against this user. But that's not all the Marvel news. Is that kind of, unless you've been living in Iraq, you've seen that Marvel did announce their full Phase 3 lineup, which will kick off with Captain America Civil War on May 6th of 2016. Then they'll have Doctor Strange November 4th of 2016. And right now, the current rumor lead to be Doctor Strange is Benedict Cumberbatch. There are talks that he is in final negotiations with Disney and Marvel to play Doctor Strange. However, we also did hear these same rumors about Joaquin Phoenix, and he ultimately fell through. Given the other roles that Benedict Cumberbatch has played, it is a really interesting choice. It's definitely a character I think that he would do well at. I know with the right voice coach and that any kind of accents can be worked out, but he is to me anyway, such a British actor. It would be interesting to hear Doctor Strange with a British accent. Now I know you can kind of make whatever you want out of movies, and he could be from wherever, but it's just it's something that that don't really think of Doctor Strange as being a British character. But after Doctor Strange, we get Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which will come out May 5th of 2017. That will then be followed by Thor Ragnarok on July 28th. So that's 2 months or two and a half months later. Now that's going to be an interesting one, because it is kind of curious on which Ragnarok they will depict in the movie. Because in the Civil War comics, there was a Thor character that was named Ragnarok, who was a part clone, part cyborg, from Tony Stark and Hank Pym, and who's kind of eventually becomes a dark character, a villain in the comics thereafter. However, if you trace back the original Norse mythology, Ragnarok is kind of the name for the events of the Norse apocalypse, or more literally translated as the fate of the gods, which sees pretty much all of the kind of Norse gods in an epic battle that ultimately leads to the death of virtually, if not all of the Norse gods and all of humanity as well. With the exception of a few survivors to repopulate the world or populate the universe. I don't know if it'll necessarily go that far, but it definitely could see, the other Asgardians meeting the end of their fates. Thor's life, up in the balance, kind of, and he would be still, under contract for additional movies after that, so I doubt you'll actually see Thor die, but it is something that it opens a door for the possibility of removing Thor from the rotation of characters. Because even still, if you do the Civil War version, he was a cyborg and a clone of Thor, so not the real Thor that we know and love. So it is kind of interesting to see which version they go, whether it's some kind of hybrid between the two, or what ends up happening with it. But the Thor movies have been extremely well regarded, across all those across both the comics fans and the movie fans. So it, like I've said again, it will be interesting to see how that turns out. Then following Thor, we get the Black Panther movie, which comes out November 3rd of 2017. Also in that event, they announced that Chadwick Boseman is going to play Black Panther. He's really known for playing Jackie Robinson in 42, and then playing James Brown in Get On Up. Both of those were critically well received, especially his performances. So he has a much bigger stage persona than he does kind of in the public arena, where he is kind of a shy person in nature. So it'll be interesting. I am looking forward to that movie as well. Actually, really honestly, all of the movies are ones I'm looking forward to. After Black Panther, we get Avengers Infinity War Part 1 on May 4th of 2018. I'll talk about that in a little bit once we finish up. Next is Captain Marvel, which will come July 6th of 2018, which it would be the first female-led Marvel movie. And granted, yes, we've had other female characters like Black Widow and that have really held their own through large chunks of movies. But this would be the first female superhero, or kind of traditional superhero that you think of having supernatural powers. However, Marvel has been getting some criticism over why it's taking so long to get a female-led superhero movie, especially in the wake of the DC news a few weeks ago, where Wonder Woman's standalone movie will be over a year before that. Now, Marvel will be beating DC to lead in as far as the first African American superhero with Black Panther. When DC's characters, Cyborg is traditionally portrayed as an African American that's cybernetically enhanced, and his movie is not till at least 2018. So it's kind of, people aren't really looking at that or bringing that up, but so I mean, it's still something that'll be interesting to see. I mean, that's also not to say that Captain Marvel couldn't show up in any of the other movies. Probably not Civil War, considering they haven't announced who would be Captain Marvel. But Marvel has said that you see cameos from other characters, and the thing that Black Panther would be in Civil War, heavily involved, or not necessarily heavily, but will have a role to play in Civil War. Then after Captain Marvel, you get the Inhumans on November 2nd of 2018, which Inhumans does seem kind of like the oddball of the group. Granted, though, they took, Marvel has taken kind of fringe characters, or not as widely regarded characters, and such as the Guardians of the Galaxy, and pulled it off to tremendous success. So, personally, I don't know that much about the Inhumans. So, that stuff like that's anything about that movie, at least as far as right now, I would have even less than speculation to comment on that. And just as I say, Guardians of the Galaxy, I forgot to mention that they are part of the Phase 3 lineup. Their movie is in May 5th of 2017. which had been pushed up compared to the early rumors of when, or early announcements of when the sequel for Guardians of the Galaxy would come out. Not much else is really known about it other than James Gunn is supposed to be back, and other rumors have said that it will focus more on Star-Lord's father and his kind of upbringing and how he kind of became to what he is that we see in Guardians 1. So then the last movie that they announced was the Avengers Infinity War Part 2, which would come after Inhumans in next May. It is kind of interesting that is interesting and not interesting at the same time that Infinity War is split up into 2 parts. It is interesting from the standpoint that legally, in a legal sense, do these count as 2 separate movies? Because we have actors that are running short on films in their contract. By calling it the same movie, Part 1 and 2, are they filming them at the same time, or are they going to get separate movie treatment? Or is they just split up because by the time those movies come out, Marvel will have so many characters at their disposal that you couldn't possibly put all of them in one movie. Because there are rumors that kind of one of them will be Guardians / cosmic focused, while one of them will be Earth focused. So that's a kind of way to get screen time for all of your characters without kind of having to shove them all into one or just give them face service. They actually have that actually will have a role to play. But there were a couple other interesting non-things or other things that are mentioned / non-mentioned. One of the other things was that even though Ant-Man will come out after Avengers Age of Ultron, it is still, in Marvel's eyes, listed as a Phase 2 movie. Whereas kind of in the initial planning they said that kind of the Avengers movies would split each phase. So while Ant-Man is listed as being released after Avengers, that it is still part of their quote Phase 2. So which makes that kind of wonder if there will be more cameos or crossovers with that kind of stuff, since that is what is technically ending Phase 2. The other interesting bits from that press conference are stuff that wasn't mentioned, and that is the fact that that there is no Ant-Man 2 listed. If that is a Phase 2 movie, it doesn't get a Phase 3 treatment. So that I have to believe, or I kind of almost wonder if Inhumans originally would have been an Ant-Man 2. However, with the director issue with the director issue they had during filming or pre-filming, that they are going to take more of a wait-and-see approach to Ant-Man and see how well this film turns out before they greenlight a sequel to it. And that is just kind of a theory that is kind of floating around there. There's no real evidence from one party or the other. Also, the other thing is, I'm not the only one to say this, but there is no standalone Hulk movie. Granted, I have a feeling probably Hulk plays a part in Civil War, given just the nature of the character that is Hulk. You can see kind of the things that he does be a kind of storyline or secondary storyline in Civil War. Especially kind of what we see from the trailer of Age of Ultron, that, you know, he is running amok in the city. He's fighting Iron Man in the streets. You know, it could be seen. You know, he could be one of the reasons why that, you know, in the Civil War, the Hero Registration Act is, you know, created, is to try and control something like that. And, you know, you could see, you know, Earth not really having any means to contain or control Hulk, that you could see it very easily be, you know, him being sent off into Exodus into space. Especially with the rumors heard a couple years ago about a Planet Hulk movie. You could have easily seen that as something that would be a logical progression of where Hulk's arc goes. That, and also it puts him out into space. It helps kind of bridge that cosmic elements that Guardians started, and what sounds like Captain Marvel will be as well, with kind of what goes on Earth and the Earth heroes. But, you know, leaving a Hulk movie off the slate is something that is a bit interesting, to, at least to me anyways. And I know I'm not alone, because I've seen several other rumors and comments about why isn't there a Hulk movie. And that could just be partly because they are a bit gun shy with a Hulk movie, given how the previous two did. You know, they did financially well, but they weren't really well received critically or in the mass market. So probably they are waiting for, you know, yes, Mark Ruffalo did a great job in the first Avengers, but again, he was a kind of a part character. Yes, what he did was important, but he didn't really have he wasn't really a leading character in that movie. So it will be interesting to see what kind of role Hulk has in Avengers 2, and if he does make any kind of cameos in any of these other movies. Because Ruffalo does have the same standard 6-movie contract like most of the other Marvel actors. So, you know, you've got Avengers 1 and Avengers 2. So where else does he show up? Because you get to a point where it's kind of, well, what else? You know, what else would he do outside of Avengers? So that would be something that would be interesting to find out what. I know Marvel won't announce anything until they have it official, that they know what they want to do with it. So probably have to wait till they announce Phase 4 to figure out what they're actually going to do with Hulk. So that's still 4 years away. And to be honest, I don't know where you would squeeze in another movie anyways without kind of starting to eat upon your other movies, like financially, so to speak, at the box office. So that was a lot of Marvel talk, but they seem to be in the news lately. But that's not on Movieverse. We will talk about more than just Marvel or comic book movies, and more than just Star Wars. One of the stories one of the movies franchises that is kind of near to me is the Toy Story, which Disney also announced via earnings call, or a financial backers call, that they are going to make a Toy Story 4 with a projected release date of June 2017. It's said to pick up where Toy Story 3 left off, And the other big part that came out of it was that John Lasseter is set to return to the directing chair to direct Toy Story 4. John Lasseter directed Toy Story 1 and 2. He directed several other early Pixar movies. Was there at the founding of Pixar, and he's still the head of Pixar right now. However, the last movie he directed was the first Cars movie in 2011, so he has not seen the director's chair for a few years. So it'll be a little bit interesting to see where he picks up, or kind of what he does with where the Toy Story franchise went when he was not a hands-on creator, or hands-on like content-wise with the Toy Story franchise. But it sounds like kind of they're just beginning to work on the script and do the concept work for it. I think Lasseter did mention that, or when Lasseter was asked for comment, he said that he didn't believe in doing sequels just to make money, that he would only do a sequel if there was another story to be told. So with him joining, especially after being away from that franchise for a couple years or several years, that it does seem like they do, at least they feel like they have a strong story, at least concept-wise, that would make it worth it for John Lasseter to come back to the studio, or come back to directing. Then the other, the last newsworthy thing that I have was that the Furious 7 trailer was released a little over a week ago. The latest installment of the Fast and the Furious franchise. This time they're dropping the Fast moniker, and it's just Furious 7. Trailer starts with probably, to me, what looks like the kind of pre-title card scene, just kind of showing you the gang working together, pulling off some kind of mid-convoy heist. Then followed by, in the movie, I feel like that'd probably be the kind of like that very first scene in the movie before you even see the Furious 7 title card, and just kind of to get you back in the groove with the gang and what they're showing you that they still have what it takes. Then the trailer moves into basically Dwayne Johnson telling you who Jason Statham's character is and why it's a big deal. Then you get a nice little montage to end the video of other little snippets from the movie. So it looks like just like the other recent Fast and Furious movies. It looks like some dumb fun. I can't wait to watch it, because one of those great what you call popcorn movies. You just grab your tub of popcorn, just sit down, and you just sit there and enjoy the ride. That's kind of, to me, what those Fast and Furious movies are, is just one kind of visual car ride. I would say pun intended. But that should just about do it for this edition of the Movieverse Podcast. We will try to do these, keep a more regular schedule for these podcasts going forward. It is just a two-man operation right now. It is just myself and Brian, and we both have full-time jobs, and we are a little busy, so bear with us while we work on creating some more content for you guys. But we will be making more videos, and we hope to see you guys watching these videos. Bye, Internet.